I would like to start with you, Jonathan, in just where innovation has put us now in terms of risk management compared to where we were in the past. I would imagine that we might be doing a little bit better off.
Thank you very much. I think there's been quite a lot of progress on innovation in disaster risk management. There's been quite a lot of advances in looking at ways in which we can predict disasters over the globally, and also in looking at more information that can help policymakers and decision makers in making decisions on how to reduce or mitigate risks. And this forum this week in Cape Town is looking at ways in which we can share information on global risk management and look at how policymakers and governments can use this information to mitigate risks. So this is a gathering of policymakers, NGOs and government officials to share information on and knowledge on reducing and mitigating risks that are caused by disasters.
Francis, I want to come to you. I was reading a report that was saying that one of the major challenges when it comes to risk and disaster management was that how to bridge the gap between scientists, policymakers and communities. Is that something that is getting better, or does that continue to be a really huge challenge where you're working?
Well, I think there's huge progress, Hannah. In fact, a little known fact about disaster is that, in fact, we can more or less predict where they're likely to occur. There's been huge advances in science, in earth sciences, in engineering. We know which area of the world are prone to earthquake, which one are subject to cyclones or floods. We also now have a good understanding of how infrastructures and population are affected by these adverse natural events. And so we're now able to in fact model the likelihood of adverse impact of these events on population. It's true that there's a challenge of translating this information in a way that really can drive policy, can help mayors and government make the right decision in mitigating this risk, or be at least ready to respond when it happens. This is one of the reasons why we're meeting here in Cape Town, is to discuss how can we better provide this information, how can we better guide decision makers in either reducing, and if it's not possible to completely eliminate the likelihood of disaster, at least be better able to respond.
Jonathan, I want to come to you though. So we're getting better at predicting it, but in terms of response on the African continent, are our governments and our communities responding in time so that if a disaster is coming, you do have the prediction that it's coming, that the response is in time, that we don't have the loss of lives or the kind of detriment that happens when a disaster does strike?
I think the Africa region has made quite a lot of progress in predicting disasters. First, it's important to understand that a lot of the disasters in the Africa region are water related. Either there is too much water, which causes floods, or too little water that causes droughts. And as you know, we've been dealing with the drought in the Horn of Africa, and also more recently in the Sahel. Information has been available to government officials about impending disasters. It's a matter of putting this information into their hands so that they can make the right decisions at the right time. But that information is there. It's a matter of actually sensitizing the governments and stakeholders to ensure that they use that information effectively and make the right decisions.
But Francis, I want to come to you though. This is what I am asking. The information is there. How has Africa responded so far to the predictions? Because if technology is there and technology is telling us a disaster is coming before it hits, what is the response been so far? I think that's what I'm trying to get out of the two of you.
Yeah. The response has not been as positive because I think capacity has been limited, and in some cases getting that information to people so that they take action can be quite challenging. So that response has not been as effective as I would have expected it to be. For example, the Horn of Africa drought was predicted over a year ago, but governments were very slow in responding. And so this is one of the challenges that we still face. The information is there, but governments are slow to respond to that information so that they take appropriate action. And one of the issues that we'll be discussing this week in Cape Town is how governments can effectively use the information that is available so that they can respond in an effective manner.
Francis, I want to come to you. We've talked about communities, we've talked about government. Is there a role that the private sector can play?
You know, yesterday we had the Minister of Regional Government at the forum, and I think he concluded his intervention with a very insightful comment, saying that disaster is really everybody's business. Yes, government can do their share. They can try to have good emergency response. They can try to have stronger infrastructure. They can try to avoid people settling in risk area. But we know that disaster will continue to occur, or at least adverse natural events will continue to occur. We'll still have earthquakes, and we'll still have cyclones and floods. And I think we all need to be able to first try to avoid putting ourselves in situation where we encounter this situation simply by and also we need to be better able to respond by simply be aware that disaster may occur. I think we can dramatically reduce the impact these events can have and limit their economic and unfortunately human impact.
Thank you so much for joining us, gentlemen. Well, we were talking to Jonathan and Francis about disaster management.